mentioned intellectual life, and you cite one of the friends of this show, which is Mark Knoll. He's been on here a couple times, as well as David Bevington, and these are my people, my historical peeps, And he says, the thing about an evangelical and intellectual life is there's really not much one. And I know people are like, well, wait a minute. I think, well, that's not what it's talking about. What do we mean by an intellectual life? And how do we cultivate that in the midst of this world?
As I was trying to sift out, when you look at the sort of the panoramic view of all the texts that are being written in the early Christian world, they are engaging the philosophical tradition of the day. They're engaging the modern philosophies. So I mentioned in there, like a great book is Robert Wilkin, Christians as the Romans Saw Them. It's a great book.
I want to read that book.
It mentions it in there. He walks through all the pagans and the scathing critiques of the pagans. I mean, it's funny. Celsus, for example, Celsus, a true word, is one of the earliest that I mention. And in Origen, the church father, actually takes Celsus's work on true word many years, 70 years or so after Celsus is dead. It's clear this text has become an important kind of manual for responding to Christians, this sort of intellectual argument. But you read Celsus's on true word, and it's really hilarious because the Christians are like, they're meeting people in the street and they're sharing the gospel. They're creating kind of backyard Bible clubs. These sort of like, they're meeting people, they're engaged, they're embedded in the and the intellectuals, the pagan intellectuals, the rhetoricians, the philosophers and whatnot, are just mocking them and just laughing at them and think they're stupid and think they're ignorant. And Celsus has a great line where he says, the only thing that's true comes through the Greek mind. And so I've said, as I've talked about this book, I said, what the Romans are asking you to do is put all your faith, your hope, your trust in the Greek mind. Like, that's what you're asked to do. You have to place your entire life in the rational inquiry of a Greek mind. Are you ready to do that? Are you ready to think that my entire life now, all my existence is predicated upon the mind of what a philosopher comes up with? And the church is engaging that, and the church is engaging it, as you said, with hope. And that's why I think that theological virtue threads so much of their interchange. And as I talk about hope, I talk about it eschatologically. Yeah, we're looking forward to that kingdom that is to come, but hope guides how you live now. It gives you confidence and fortitude. And look, I know Christ is going to come again in glory, judge the living and the dead, and establish a kingdom that has no end. That is going to happen. And so it gives someone like Justin in his first apology, he's talking about the kingdom of God, and he's writing to the emperor, and he says, when you hear us mention kingdom, you think that it's like an earthly kingdom, like you think it's like the Roman Empire. You don't understand that we're talking about a spiritual kingdom that is to come, in which Jesus Christ is our king. And so you can already see how the Roman mindset is an eminent frame, to use kind of Charles Taylor's word. It's an eminent focus. It's all about here and now. It's all about building the glory of Rome. The Christians come along and are like, well, we're going to live faithfully, and we trust that just as Christ said in Acts 1, that just as the angel said to the apostles, as you have seen him go, you will see him come again. We believe that, and we live our lives in light of that truth. So come what may, we're going to be faithful and committed to the gospel of Jesus Christ and the proclamation of the good news. And so that kind of intellectual discourse is something that had to go on as they were responding to some of those intellectuals. But that should never be separated from kind of the embedded public life that's the next chapter. Mm-hmm. I don't want to pit those against each other, but see them as complementary approaches. We've got to address the intellectuals, but we've got to address the everyday person that we meet on the streets that are in our jobs. So those things kind of coincide together in the early Christian. I see in early Christian apologetics.